Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, New Beginnings, Early Childhood Opportunities for New York City's Youngest Immigrants. I'm Natasha Quiroga, Director of Education Policy at InsideSchools at the Center for New York City Affairs at the New School, and we're very proud to sponsor today's event. And we're so glad that you're all here today as we explore how to better support immigrant families on the path to daycare, 3K, and pre-K in New York City. In today's webinar, we've got a very diverse panel of experts who are at the forefront of tackling these issues. We'll hear from Alisalda Coronado, childcare educator with Joali's Family Group Daycare, Teresa Council, Cypress Hills Childcare Corporation Executive Director, Tamara Mayer, Senior Director of Program Implementation with New York City Public Schools Project Open Arms, and the Honorable Rita Joseph, City Council member of District 40 and chair of the City Council's Committee on Education. And while 3K and pre-K are free for all New York City families, care for infants and toddlers is not uniformly free. According to the Citizens Committee for Children, more than 80% of New York City families with children under 5 cannot afford childcare. And a report from the New York City Comptroller's Office found that only about 29% of income-eligible infants and toddlers receive subsidized care. Programs like Early Learn NYC and Promise NYC offer free or low-cost options for qualifying families, including some immigrant households, but funding and space are extremely limited. And beyond income-eligible children, there are more than 150,000 infants and toddlers who don't qualify for subsidy programs and currently have almost no free options. And our immigrant families face additional barriers. Undocumented children are often not eligible for subsidized programs. Applications can be very confusing. Extensive documentation is often required, and information in home languages may be limited. And many families also face the catch-22. Infant and toddler programs often require parents to be either working, enrolled in school, or actively job seeking. But without childcare, taking these steps is often nearly impossible. And at InsideSchools, we met several families who were unable to move forward with a child care voucher application despite being eligible because they were waiting for the outcome of their cash assistance application. So our panelists today will discuss these very real barriers that immigrant families face when they're seeking care for their youngest children. They'll highlight policy efforts aimed at improving access and explore what's working and what still needs to change so that immigrant families can more easily find and access affordable early childhood options. And just some quick logistics. This webinar will be recorded and shared with all participants, and we'll have time at the end for Q&A. So please enter your questions in the Q&A feature. We'll try to be monitoring the chat, but it'll be easier if you're enter your questions in the Q&A feature. So we've got a limited amount of time, so let's get started. And we will have our first speaker, Alisalda Coronado, who is a childcare educator at Joali's Family Group Daycare. Alisalda. Now, many immigrant families face challenges accessing 3K or childcare. Costs are high, and the process can be confusing with unclear terms. And requirements such as proof of address or income can often be difficult for families in informal jobs or who live in shared housing. How do you help families through these challenges, and what changes could make the systems easier?
I have partnership with many organizations like resources, we call it resources. And when they don't have the proof they real need, we recommend many options. For example, many families living in bathroom, sharing a apartment. The primary owner to the lease, they don't have access to provide. We call the agency and ask to the educator, to the agency, and ask if they can bring, for example, a notary document like a letter, sometimes with hands. They going to the public notary and they bring to the agency, but that's take many back and forth. We support with resources. It's only we have in our hands at the moment.
And what other changes would make the system easier?
The system needs to recognize the real situation in our immigrant families. They share apartment. They don't have access to a job payment with paid stub. They don't have a real sequence of pay stub. They lose their job sometimes. They coming back. They lose like 2 weeks, and agencies ask for 12 pay stub. If 2 weeks between the 12 pay stub is no sequencing, they need to wait for 12 more. And only when the family need to access to the work with who they leave the kids. And any person in this city needs to have a job. It's like the system needs to make like 3 months, 6 months to bring the proof to the family, try to find a job, many forms, and ask for company telephone number, email, all the information for the work, for the job the family is seeking at the moment. And they can to recertification, like 3 months or 6 months, when the family is more stable for offer the proof of job.
Mhm. And how does this impact children?
It's a lot. We all know about the development in early years. If the family live with a grandma, the grandma have is a such a value in the life of the children, but with the neighbor doesn't have experience with developing the children, any difficult between the children, when the children are developing, they need a good environment to have it's enrichment environment to develop any age. They they can lose safety. Is about safety, about development, is connection with the parents and a good educator. There's many ways to when the kids are live without in good hands. When we say good hands.
Right. So you kind of talked about the safety, but how in your program does access to reliable childcare affect not just the children's safety, but also their learning and daily care?
Oh, we offer since they start, since the parents seeking the program, when they visit, when we have a video call, when they visit our program, when they fill our forms before start, the family and the kids know what they what they um what they expect to receive. When the kids start, we're receiving with warm welcome. We have communication with the families. We are in the same page. Our program is our licenses with 16 kids, and we have in contact sometimes 12 families. It's sometimes 60, but many families have 2 kids or 3 kids. It's a low, it's more close connection with the way the family raise the kids and our learning environment. We adapt their like we adapt their culture in our program, and we merge our type of learning with the family needs. It's
Great, thank you. And if you could change one thing to help the kids the most, what would it be?
about the access with the
Mm.
families. The families need more access to, maybe not more easy, because for the system needs some proof. That's normal. But when the family is going to work, those families need more support, no less support. Sometimes the system, in my eyes, the system offer some programs. If you said like $1, $2, those family doesn't have access to going to those programs. It's more flexibility to the working families. It's like a win-win. If you offer some programs to the working families, the city is more, that's gonna much better for the economy to the city.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Alisada. I really appreciate your insight coming from a home-based daycare provider. So now we're going to shift. Let me bring up Teresa, who is the executive director of Cypress Hills Childcare Corporation. Teresa, thank you so much for being with us today. And at Cypress Hills, you guys work closely with families and the community to provide early childhood programs. How do you support immigrant families in accessing 3K, pre-K, and childcare? And what strategies have been most effective?
Sure. So at our organization, we have a family daycare network of about 75 to 80 different family daycare homes across Brooklyn and Queens. We also have a Head Start, a family daycare Head Start program. And then we have a DOE-funded childcare centers that has 2 3K classrooms and 2 pre-K classrooms, right? So mainly covering 3 to 5-year-olds, and our network goes anywhere from 6 weeks to 12-year-olds. We help them in every aspect. And that the important thing to remember is that our immigrant families have so many challenges, especially right now, that education is just an additional challenge, right? We go from everything to housing security to food insecurity. And so there's just a variety of challenges that they're trying to navigate. So we at least try to make this one as seamless as possible. Now, if you're familiar with Head Start, you know that the intake process is very lengthy. But we have family workers there and walk them through the process step by step. We do a health intake. We do their general intake form with them. We follow up. We set goals with the families. When they're leaving our program, when they're applying to kindergarten, we'll go on the system with them. Sometimes we help parents with just creating an email address, right? They might not be technologically savvy. We have a lot of families in our organization that have just arrived. Sometimes we find that we're the first place that they're coming because they might have a friend who, was in our organization, said, hey, they can help you. So we will walk them through the process. We will help them navigate the system, figure out what school system would be better for them, how they can get a spot there, and really just make them feel comfortable. We also help them with parenting initiatives. We facilitate a parenting program called Abriendo Puertas, which is opening doors. And it's an 11-week program where parents are learning everything about advocacy for their own children. We provide food, childcare. We talk about financial literacy, discipline, and really just kind of make them more familiar with the culture here and try to how to navigate the system. Those are some things that we do. We also have a lot of partnerships with local healthcare centers and food banks, and we'll keep an emergency pantry in our organization's office, but we'll also connect them to things that are more sustainable for them, and really just try to bring them together to create a sense of community with each other so they don't feel so alone in the city.
That's a lot that you're doing and focused on, but it sounds like those are the strategies that have been most effective.
Yeah, and we're on the ground. We're really grassroots. We set up tables everywhere. We'll go to the food pantries. We'll go to the clinics where we know that there are children, and we'll set up tables, hand out, flyers. So we're really everywhere out in the city to find them because we find people aren't very trusting. We are a trusted part of the community since we've been there so long. So we find that our relationships, our deep-rooted relationships in the community, have really helped us with our outreach and networking.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much for all the work that you are doing for the community. And, I know that Cypress Hills used to be a Promise NYC provider. Can you tell us a little bit more about that program?
Sure. So it was a great partnership. And since we have a network, it worked out beautifully because we would connect the families right into our family daycare network, and they would use their voucher there and attend school there. We also were able to provide some of the families for extended day in our childcare center. But as we know, the need is so much and they're so limited, right? So right now they're only doing wait lists and they can't bring on new families. But we probably have connected between 75 and 100 families throughout our partnership with childcare. And it's so important because now those families have the opportunity to pursue employment opportunities, and the children are, able to thrive in a school environment.
That's great. And it looks like we've got a question in the Q&A. Somebody's wanting to know about whether families have to live in a specific borough to be referred to Cypress Hills childcare.
So for our family daycare network, no, but I mean, all of our houses are, all of the homes are really in East New York, Cypress Hills, and some of Queens. But for the Head Start program, we do have an encatchment area. So you do need to be in one of the 3 surrounding areas. Yes.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And for those listening, we will be sending out an email with links and resources. So we can also include links to Cypress Hills for those who are interested as well.
I also want to mention for our Abriendo Puertas parenting program, you don't have to be. And we also offer a virtual option. So you could be anywhere and enroll in that. So we can include that in the links we send out.
That would be great. So we are getting a new mayor soon. What recommendations do you have for the new mayor to better support immigrant families to be able to access these early childhood opportunities?
They need advocacy, and really on the ground advocacy. And so I suggest to him to go out into the areas, and I believe he will, but just listen to what the immigrants are saying, listen to what their needs are, hear it right from them. But they definitely need a strong voice to advocate for them. So much of the work that we do with the families is showing them avenues where they can advocate for themselves, but they definitely need, they're here, they want to work, they want to build community here and raise their families, but they need access to childcare, they need basic necessities, and that's really important for their children to be able to thrive.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything you wanted to add to share about Cypress Hills? I know, we've talked about the many barriers that immigrant families face, and I know you've done a lot of thinking about how to best support families. But other recommendations you would have for other policymakers in the city?
I mean, the partnerships, what I have more is for like other like-minded nonprofits, is just to partner with each other and collaborate, even if it seems like we're doing the same thing, best practice and how, I mean, we're stronger together. I think we're all doing really amazing work, but sometimes in pockets, and I think we can be stronger together. So I think those policymakers, it's important to bring people to the table, like all of us in this room now. Bring us to the table, hear us out, let us know what the people are saying, and then have us be part of the process of developing these things, right? Like, let us give our input to them while they're making these policies.
And how do people find out about Cypress Hills? You mentioned you're in the communities, but for other groups and other CBOs, community-based organizations, even an organization like InsideSchools, how do we all partner together and find out about you?
Yeah, so we started our social media campaign. We can be found, everywhere there. We have our website, we can share that. And I mean, it's a lot of what we do is through word of mouth. And anytime we're invited to events, we like to do a lot of outreach. So we'll go to fairs everywhere we can. We just want to, since we are such a small grassroots organization, we're really looking for opportunities to get out there more.
Great. Thank you so much, Teresa. I really
Thank you.
appreciate all this information. And now we're going to hear from New York City Public Schools. Let's bring in, oops, I removed myself. Here we go.
Let's be friends, Natasha.
Thank you, Tamara, for being here. Tamara is from New York City Public Schools, where she is Senior Director of Program Implementation of Project Open Arms. Can you share a little bit about Project Open Arms, as well as how it helps newly arrived immigrant families access daycare, 3K, and pre-K programs?
Absolutely. And thank you for inviting us into this space. I want to make sure that everybody knows about Project Open Arms. So Project Open Arms is a comprehensive plan to support not only our newest New Yorkers, but all of our immigrant students and families across New York City public schools, inclusive of our families with mixed immigration status. This multi-agency plan highlights the services that we offer for our kids, including our academic services, our social emotional services, our language-based supports, so that our families and our students can be successful in New York City public schools. Our job is to coordinate all of the efforts of every single office in New York City public schools to best support our newest New Yorkers and all of our immigrant students and families. So we meet once a week with every single office, inclusive of our Division of Early Childhood Education, to make sure that we are constantly talking and planning supports for our kiddos. We're also working very closely with our Office of Students in Temporary Housing. We have New York City public school staff who work inside of shelters and are supporting our families, understanding the different programs available to them and how they can apply for those programs, making sure that families know about our family welcome centers if they want more in-depth conversations. We're also making sure that at our school level, we're having those conversations at the district level so that we're getting that back to our parent coordinators inside of our schools as they're supporting families who may have school-age children, who may have also those younger kiddos. We want to make sure that all of our staff know how to support our families. And then we also have an advocate think tank where we get to meet with folks outside of New York City public schools. If there are things that are happening, especially involving our little ones that we haven't heard of, we work together to problem solve, like how can we support families? Because I'm hoping that we're hearing what we need from our districts, but sometimes we're not. So having that advocate think tanks gives us another route so that we're hearing from the community as well.
Great. Thank you for sharing all of that information. And so what do you see are the biggest challenges that New York City Public Schools faces in helping newcomer families access 3K and pre-K programs, especially those who face housing instability, language barriers, or limited documentation?
There's a lot of challenges for our families, but I think we also have some solutions. So I'm happy to start with our challenges. I think families experiencing housing instability often face multiple overlapping barriers for enrollment, right? It's the moving of the shelters and how does that, making sure that our families know their rights, their McKinney-Vento rights, that they can stay in their schools, that they can transfer. We have language barriers that can make it challenging for families to understand the options, maybe not having access to Wi-Fi and computers to navigate my schools, being able to engage with enrollment staff. Many families are managing significant transitions, settling into a new city, adapting to new systems, trauma that is coming with moving into the city or just with non-local law enforcement in the streets. But to address those, well, wait, I don't know if you want me to start to go into that, Natasha. I'm going to pause because I said a lot there.
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, to address those, the Division of Early Childhood Education is working closely with our students in temporary housing staff, as well as our enrollment staff. Those folks that are on the ground that are supporting our families are key to this. We really believe knowledge is power, and also having folks know that New York City Public Schools speaks your language. While New York City Public Schools only has 12 official languages, our Office of Language Access is interpreting and translating for families in up to 180 languages. And Natasha, I'll make sure that I share that link with you because I want to make sure that everybody knows that doesn't matter what age your child is, New York City Public Schools is speaking your language, so that we make sure that everybody knows about all the opportunities available to our students and our families. Our approach is really meeting our families where they are through direct outreach in our shelters, our family welcome centers, and collaborating with shelter staff. And I do want to thank Chair Joseph, because with the support of the city and city council, for the second consecutive year, our Division of Early Childhood Education outreach campaigns continues to expand their efforts to support our families in temporary housing so that we can provide clear information and connecting them to nearby programs, ensuring they have the systems they need to complete the enrollment. And that investment enables our Division of Early Childhood Education to deploy those dedicated outreach teams during the application and offer periods to focus engagement in neighborhoods near shelters and other high need areas, helping our families apply and accept the offers or joint wait lists for early childhood programs. We cannot do this alone. We're so grateful for partnerships, having Chair Joseph by our side, really helping us make sure that we get the funding that we need sometimes to help our families is critical. We always say Project Open Arms is a tiny little team, but it is everybody in New York City Public Schools is Project Open Arms, and all of our partners outside of New York City Public Schools. Again, we cannot do this alone, so we're so grateful for those partnerships. So I hope everybody who's on this webinar, you are now Project Open Arms. Welcome. Please feel free to reach out to our team, like email us openarms@nyc.gov. You can check our website, schools.nyc.gov/Project Open Arms. You can see our resources. If you are a resource and you're not on our site, please reach out so we can add you. We cannot do this alone. I feel like Teresa said it. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery, Teresa, right? So I really want to make sure that we're working together. It takes a village to raise a child, and I am so grateful for all of you for joining our village. And Natasha, thank you for the space, because this is important for folks to hear this.
Yeah, thank you, Tara. We're happy to be a partner. And you emphasize, the necessity of all of these partnerships to ensure that families can be supported. Can you share a little bit more about what the single biggest challenge for immigrant families is? What do you see repeatedly?
I think there's so many challenges. I think right now it's the transitions that are happening. I think non-local law enforcement, there's a fear right now, to be really honest. I'm going to call out that's a big fear that's happening. And I want folks to know that we are standing behind our kids through our partnerships with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. We are supporting our families. And I want folks to see us as a resource. If that is a reason why we're not sending our kids to school, please reach out to us so that we can talk about supports that are available for our students and our families.
Yeah, and that, we have seen that as well. So how can we reassure families about safety? I mean, we heard about what happened in Chicago, where a childcare worker was arrested by ICE at a childcare center. Families are worried that this might happen here in New York City as well. How can we reassure our families?
I'll tell you that we've been doing trainings for all of our superintendents, our principals, our teachers, our school safety agents, those folks at the doors, our guidance counselors, our social workers, our parent coordinators, to understand we have a protocol in New York City Public Schools on what to do if we see non-local law enforcement approaching our buildings. I can say to date, and I always like to knock on wood when I say this, we have not had non-local law enforcement inside of our buildings, but those trainings are critical, and we continue to make sure that we have them when we go over the protocol and what to do. We also are offering a training for our staff and our families, like what to do if we were outside, right? What's great about New York City is the great city that it is, right? I want our kids to still feel like I want to go explore the museums. I want our teachers to take our kids to see the city, right? The city is amazing. We have an amazing place. So we do talk about in the training, like, what would you do if you see non-local law enforcement and you were at the Bronx Zoo? We go over those protocols to make sure that folks have those trainings. We have all of that information on our info hub accessible for our New York City public school staff. But it's really, I think knowledge is power right now. We also are continuing to do Know Your Rights trainings for our families, and we offer those in multiple languages because it's also important to talk about your rights when you're outside of New York City Public Schools, right? What do we do to make sure that we know like what are our rights as it is living in a sanctuary city. We're so grateful for our partners at the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs who have been able to partner us with Make the Road and NILAG and Project Russo on local and MASA. And you can check out our site. We're going to continue to offer those. We always offer them English, Spanish, and one extra language. So like English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, English, Spanish, French, English, Spanish, Russian. Like you will see those on there. They're virtual. They're an hour. We're working on some in-person, but trying to figure out it's tricky, to be honest. I want to make sure it's in a safe location. But more to come. Always check our site or talk to your school parent coordinator to find out more information about those trainings.
Thank you. That was definitely a question that we've seen in the chat. And have you been seeing an impact on attendance from families because of concern to some of these trainings? I mean, I know that some of these are virtual, but for the in-person trainings.
So that's why we haven't done it in person this school year, to be honest, because we were nervous that that could be the reason. So what we are doing as we're looking for spaces for our in-person Know Your Rights trainings, we are working with our elected officials to think about what could be some safe spaces. So we really want to keep school neutral. I don't want that to be a reason why a family doesn't come into school today because, oh, there's a Know Your Rights training happening. So maybe that's going to attract some attention to the school building. So I'm not sending my kid. Again, right now, all are virtual. We are working on having some in person. So please keep checking our sites, schools.nyc.gov/Project Open Arms, and you can see whether we're virtual or in person.
Right.
And they're constantly being updated because we're working with our partners to schedule.
And then what about the impact on attendance in school?
So the attendance is a tricky one because looking at we've been following up with our families who if they were not here last year or in June, I'm sorry, families who were not families, students, excuse me, students who had attendance issues in June. Those are the students that were prioritized in September. And we've been doing outreach to make sure we're following up. But it's not as a dip as we thought. I don't know what's going to happen in January when we have brand new administration. But while there is an attendance impact, it's not as big as everybody thinks that it is. Our kids are still coming to school. We are encouraging folks to come to school. We want to keep school as safe as the places we can.
Great. Well, hopefully that is great news. And I just want to flag for if people are not following in the chat, there's a lot of different groups who are also doing Know Your Rights trainings and New Sanctuary Coalition. Sorry, I'm just scrolling up through that NILAG. And so we'll collect all these resources and share them with everybody. So if you've got resources, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will share them out with everybody. And it looks like we've got a question in the Q&A, and maybe you can clarify it a little bit for, the question is, could you clarify if preschoolers are eligible for a Metro card under the McKinney-Vento Act?
I am not 100% sure, but Natasha, I can get you the answer to that, to be honest. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure I can get you the answer.
Because I know this has been confusing for a lot of folks, whether it's K through 6, does 3K, pre-K counts? So that would be helpful to share with everybody. So
Absolutely. I will get that for you. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Tamara, for all of your great insights and all the great work we're doing. We're happy to be a partner with you guys. So now let's go to Chair Joseph, if I can figure out quickly how to add her spotlight here.
I'm right here.
Okay, there you are.
Hi. And the question on the Metro card, yes.
Yeah. So it is for 3K and pre-K for those who are children who are in temporary housing.
Correct.
Okay, that is great to know because there have been a lot of conflicting advice that comes out. So we're always happy to clarify that for everyone. So we're very fortunate that we have the Honorable Rita Joseph, who's chair of the City Council's Education Committee and representing District 40. Thank you so much for joining us today, Chair Joseph. And as chair of the Education Committee, you've championed equitable access to education for quite some time. What legislative or budgetary initiatives have you supported to expand early childhood education opportunities for immigrant families in New York City?
First of all, thank you so much for having me for this important conversation. As the education chair and also a mom and immigrant, I know firsthand how important early childhood is, not only for our children's learning development, but also for the success of our communities and our families in New York City. Those things are so important. Access to high quality early childhood education too should never depend on language, right? We talked about language barriers, immigration status, whether it's zip code. Immigrant families already faced enough barriers that keep the opportunity. So by removing a lot of these barriers, we're opening the doors to our families to come to New York. I mean, not just New York, but New York City as it is. But I've consistently, if anyone has followed the work, I've consistently prioritized equity access in early childhood, especially for multi-language learners, low-income families who face unique barriers in navigating our childcare system, whether it's filling out those 10-page applications, which I say should already start at the facilities, should be part of the parent coordinator's mission as well. Supported historic investments in 3K, 4K, ensuring that outreach is so important, as Tamara mentioned earlier. We want to reach every single family that's qualified to have these seats, to know that these seats are available and find out what are the barriers. Is it language? Is it not having a device to fill out those applications? And we saw that during the pandemic where families faced digital divides, and it was huge. A lot of families may not have internet. Students who live in temporary housing, access to internet was something that they could not access because of the way the buildings were built. So those are quite a few barriers. Advocating for increasing for preschool special education. And when they were building out the system, some of our students are on both sides. There are special needs, and then there are immigrant students facing language barriers, so here you have a parent who doesn't know how to navigate the special education system, how to ask for evaluation, how to be in a room with the SBST team, what to ask for when they get there. So it's also important to make sure that language access was also available in our schools. So that's one of the things we fought for a lot. One of the things we also fought for, especially for our preschool special education, was the 4410 pay parity for our teachers to be able to stay in that sector. We saw there was a huge drove. In order to stabilize that workforce, we had to make sure the pay was also meeting their needs. And we say that all the time. They don't get paid enough to do this work, but you'll meet a lot of the providers. They love the work. They loved children. They do this out of love. One of the other things is to ensure CBOs are also part of the conversation when we make these policy decisions. Teresa said it. They have to be at the room because they serve the families that we're advocating for, but I can't advocate if I don't know what the needs are. So make sure that also we're not working in silos, that these, the CBOs and the providers in New York City Public Schools are working lockstep, hand in hand, because the work overlaps. So it's so important. Resources, as a lot of my colleagues have mentioned, having the resources overlap to make sure that if I don't have it, but I can say, hey, go to the school down the street, I can make a phone call and connect you to that resource. So it's so important that we're not having these conversations in silos, but we're working together because we have that one common denominator. The students that we serve, the immigrant families that we fight for every single day. I fight on a different level. Teresa fights on a different level. Lucinda fights on a different level. Tamara fights on a different level. But at the end of the day, the common denominator is the families. They all have the same thing in common. The fights are just different. So how I approach it may be different, but if we're working together, I'll know how to approach this fight versus what my other colleagues are. So I'm really excited about the work that we do around young people, NYC Promise, making sure that we're investing in the right seats too, as we age down. And someone mentioned Head Start earlier this year. One of the things we saw around Head Start was the funding was taken away. The city had to step up and backfill that funding. And that's for years. So we got to make sure that we're having conversations and how to sustain this model.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I know that was a lot.
But very important work. And I think, really highlighting the importance of the different voices within this to support our youngest New Yorkers. It's very critical. And so, what's been getting a lot of attention now is the push for universal childcare. So there's a pilot that's supposed to be launching this coming January with a couple hundred seats. Can you share more about this pilot, what its goals, the scope, and how it might inform future expansion?
Absolutely. You always need a model because one, you want to capture the data, you want to see how it's working. Data drive my policy, and I always say that. And data will give us a guidance. We know that a lot of families were aging down. And as I mentioned earlier, when the first launch of 3K, those students are in middle school. Now we're looking at the upcoming families, and we're seeing that we need to age down the seats. So we did a pilot of aging down 240 seats. And the mission is to eventually launch. This will be the launch pad for universal care. Where do we start? This morning I was at Mayor-elect in one of the sites in my district, Friends of Crown Height. And one of the things they brought up to us was that the last RFP left them out in infant and toddler. And they have 2 rooms that's been sitting there for almost 5 years with no children, but the needs in the community, families keep coming in, and that's what they need. I need 0 to 2. I need early learn, it's toddler. And you don't want to separate families. And that was another conversation we had. If I have a 6-month-old and I have a 2-year-old, I can't put them in the same site because the seats are not there. So it creates a situation where families are choosing, where do I place my child? How do I get back to work? And we know this impact women more than any others in this society. It impacts women to decide to go back into the workforce, decide to change career, or decide to go back to school.
So this is a program that I'm sure families will be very much looking forward to.
Absolutely.
So looking ahead, what else can be done to improve access and affordability? What other solutions should the city be exploring, especially when you're talking about immigrant families, those who might be undocumented?
Scale up, as I mentioned earlier, we started NYC Promise. That was the mission for our families. To make sure that we're seeing where the needs are too. And as we create them, the seats are being filled rapidly to the point where there is no seat. So the need is there. We just have to look at the system itself and see how we build it out. But I don't want a fast rollout and it's not sustainable. We have to look at, for me, I would look at it in phases, 0 to 2. I would look 3K, 4K, and continue to expand and making sure I have the workforce, the providers are ready. And one of the things I would love to see, and I've been asking for that, where parents can enroll their children right at the centers. See, Teresa's agreeing with me. Where families can enroll right there at the site. And we work with New York City Public Schools. That's been my dream. I've been asking New York City Public School, how do we work on it? That is something that we should work. Infrastructure is also important, right? How do we sustain the models that we have, build on the models we already have that exist based on what we see, expand, and create flexibilities? How can I also move seats around? I may not, the need may be different in certain areas. So flexibility to move the seats around are also very important in conversations we're currently having.
Mhm. I think that's really critical. I mean, we saw when we were trying to enroll families, the spots near their shelters were full. So they were having to wake up their children at like 5 or 6 a.m. just to get to the child into a 3K program that was like 2 trains away.
2
So
trains
that-
away, correct. And we want to make sure families are also able to stay within communities. So it's also easier where the grandma can go and pick up the child while mom works. So that's also important. And one of the other things we want to see is extended day, extended year. I was an educator for 22 years. I got out of work at 2:20, but I never made it to pick up Chris at 2:20. So I want to make sure families have that option that they can work in realistic ways as well. So extended day, extended year is also a pilot that the council had also put in place to see how it works and how we can build off of the expansion.
Right. That would be amazing for a lot of families because that is such a challenge. Because nobody gets off work at 2:20.
Nobody.
Nobody. So I know you met earlier with the mayor-elect, but what other recommendations do you have for him to better support immigrant families access these early childhood options?
One of the things we talked a lot about is the contracts, the flexibilities in the contracts, having families, and I may have a bunch of 2K seats, but I don't have enough of that seat. How can I switch them around to meet the needs of the community that I plan to serve? And I'm sure the providers can agree with that, and having flexibilities in their contracts to switch out. If let's say I'm getting more 3K, but I'm getting less 4K. So how can I switch those things out? And looking at the next batch of RFPs that are coming out, are we talking to providers to see what do they need in each of the neighborhoods that they serve? We talked about when I first came in, we saw a lot of complaints about seats are being left open and left open, but they were not the right seats in the right communities. So how do we switch those seats to meet the needs of that community we plan to serve? And that bring down early child care is one of the things, not $21,000, but on the sliding scales for working families would be great as well. And yep, I agree. More year, that's exactly what I said. A extended day, extended year for more families so they can work, go to school, and plan. They can plan. If I know my child is getting out at 6 p.m., I can plan how I work, how I go to school, how I take classes, how I decide to make certain decisions. And we see every dollar we invest in early childhood, the returns are $8 or more. So I'm ready, and so many money, a lot of money is being left on the table because we contribute to that economy. And if I'm not working, so the investment is a great investment. So I'm looking forward to helping shape the conversation, and looking forward to working with all the providers as well.
Thank you so much, Chair Joseph. Very enlightening, very hopefully we'll see some progress made. And I want to thank all of our amazing panelists. I'm going to open it up for Q&A for everybody. So I will add our other speakers back into the spotlight. And if you have questions, please feel free to type in the Q&A or the chat. I know there's a couple here already. So I will ask this of the speakers, and whoever wants to jump in and just grab it. This is from somebody who is with a community-based arts organization that is interested in supporting immigrant families with young children. What are ways arts nonprofits can partner with some of these organizations? Are there any models that already exist? Does anybody want to take this one?
I want to partner with everyone. So I'm literally inviting you. You can email me. Our team will meet with you and figure out how do we get that into our schools, right? I'm happy to put my email is tmair@schools.nyc.gov. If you want it easier, open arms at schools.nyc.gov. Please feel free for anybody. Like if you want information and you have something that you want to share with families and students, please feel free to reach out to our team and we will make time to talk to you because this is a partnership and we want to work with all of you.
I was just going to say that we also have a dance program that comes in our center and does movement with our children. And so we're always open. We have a science program that comes in and does just hands-on science projects with our children as well. So I'll put my email in the chat and, always open to collaboration.
And it's this question about arts, right? So important. It should be embedded in the curriculum, just like I have always said. ESL, not ESL, SEL should also be embedded in the curriculum. So should arts, music, dance, theater, drama, all of that. I fight for all of that. It should be embedded in the curriculum, not as a standalone, but embedded. So whoever the provider is working with the vendor to make sure that it's implemented in the curriculum. So today when we went, we saw playtime. We saw one I think Mayor-elect was playing with a kid who was building a house, and then he built a garage, but that was the STEM, that was the engineering, that was the hands-on part of the curriculum. So I think a high quality early childhood should also have strong curriculum, and those things should be embedded in there, whether it's music, dance, theater, drama.
Okay. Alessandra, did you have anything to add? Okay. We'll go to the next question. I see a question from Mary Kelly. When a family does not have proper pay stubs, what can we provide in exchange? This sounds like a very technical question. I don't know, Teresa or Alasalda, if either of you want to take it.
It is a complex question. We do try to get letters notarized. We've tried everything. We'll reach out and advocate. Our family workers will reach out and advocate on their behalf. But it is a challenge. It's a real challenge.
That's the unique, I'm sorry, that's the unique barriers that our families face. Some of our families don't work on the books. How do we meet those families where they are in terms of documents? So I always say that we have to find a way to meet those families where they are. Not everybody works on the books. So those notarized letters, and sometimes there are gaps in, as mentioned earlier, in their pay stub. How do we work with that? So that should be probably something we look at. Thank you for flagging that for me. That's something in terms of policy we can look and see what kind of documents are accepted. I remember I was recently at a first home buyers event, and folks take susus as down payments now. Banks recognize susus as a way for a down payment towards your home. So there should be another way around how we accept documents for our immigrant families who may not be working on the book, but does have a job.
And maybe we can expand upon this into like the housing issue. I know that Alessandra sort of referenced that people who live in shared housing, how can they prove, what can they provide to prove that they live where they say they're living, and especially if they're either,
Double
sharing.
up. They call double up. When you double up,
Yes.
yeah, double up. I know the main person in the household has to provide that letter to support that family. But what if that person makes more money? Then it's like it also creates another problem. And I'm sure the providers can agree with that. Then it creates another problem. And they have to show how many people live in there, how much the income bracket is, and it creates other issues. So it's something we really have to think about how we approach.
Mhm. Right, definitely. Another question is, are there any advocacy efforts active now to change these laws and policies?
Could you repeat the last part?
Yeah.
Are there any advocacy efforts active now to change these laws?
That's something I must look into general welfare. They handle the social services division in the council and committee. Maybe that's something we should be talking about. Councilmember Ayala is leaving. I don't know who the new chair will be in January, but that's a conversation I can always start having. And again, this is where the providers come into the room and help us guide that conversation and help us guide that policy.
Tamara, did you have something to add?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question. Can you repeat it for me one more time?
Are there any advocacy efforts active now to change these laws?
And by these laws, we're talking about families needing paperwork. I do want to say for our McKinney-Vento is a federal law for students residing in temporary housing. They don't have to show anything, right? There are certain like programs that if they're federally funded, they may ask for paperwork, but for our general programming, if you are a student in temporary housing, you are protected by the federal McKinney-Vento law, and they should be able to just enroll into a program without providing anything.
Similar to our students in foster care, same rule applies. They should be able to enroll without having a birth certificate, without having any type of paperwork.
Right. So we have another question from somebody saying, I'm curious if there's any push to tap into the wealth that many immigrant students come in with their languages. Is there any hope of expansion of dual language programs to ensure we support their bilingualism, multilingualism, and hopefully biliteracy? Good question.
Yes, 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 yes. I think what everybody needs to understand is being multilingual is a superpower. How amazing is it that our kiddos are speaking these languages? And let me tell you, all these kiddos, the young kids that are coming in speaking languages that are new to New York City public schools, those are my future teachers, my future principals, the future chancellor, right? There is a job pipeline. Think about it. These are our new, they are teaching. Some of the kids are speaking like 5 or 6 languages. It blows my mind. So yes, 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 we are tapping into it. We're trying to pour in the power into it, thinking about what internship opportunities can be made available. Like how do we do stipends while we work on other pieces? But like, yes, 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 absolutely. We are embracing. And God bless Chancellor Villas Ramos. This is like her biggest thing. Like, how do these are our future educators, our future leaders, like our future mayors, right? We're pouring into these kids. So yes.
I'm a big supporter of dual language. I was a bilingual education teacher for a long time. I was an ESL coordinator. But one of the things we did in the council under the leadership of my colleague, Councilmember Dinowitz, is students graduating high school can now get a biliteracy high school diploma. That means you speak another language. Here's the stamp of approval on your high school diploma. But we want to start with our youngest, right? We want to make sure we're maintaining that language that they're coming in and building off of that and creating English and whatever else the other languages, we're maintaining both of them as they navigate. Like you said, this is creating a workforce. This will be your interpreters. This will be your translators, your mayors, your doctors, your teachers. And we've always celebrated bilingualism as a strength, not a deficit, but as a strength. And so that's one of the things we're doing. So now a young person going through the New York City public school system, they will graduate with a biliteracy high school diploma.
That's fantastic and amazing results of what advocacy can do, right? And see these good results. I think we've got time for about one more question. And I'm scrolling through them. I think we've gotten we've gotten all of them. If anybody sees the other one, let's see. I'm not sure what this question is. Oh, this question is about how families can apply for vouchers or subsidies. The 015 form is a replacement, but Alasalda's point that 12 consecutive weeks is a hardship is a great point for policy. So I just wanted to know that. I'm not sure if there was a question in that, more of a comment, but just to highlight that. I think we have another question. Any chance of extending Promise NYC to more families so that more undocumented families can access care?
That's my dream in the next budget to expand some more seats. That's my dream. Working on that. And I think someone said that the ACS housing attestation form is here if a family ever needs it. They don't need a notarized statement from the leaseholder. So that's good to know. Thank you.
And I think that is a good point that, you know, people are sharing these resources in the chat that there are workarounds, but how do families find out about these workarounds?
Yep.
Right. I know Alasala and Teresa, you have to inform families themselves, but a lot of families don't know. They might not have one of you there to help them guide through that process. So how are families able to access this information?
They said it's an ACS form, so that's good. Maybe reaching out to agencies and building those partnerships as well to know how to work around it to meet the needs of the families.
And that's what I meant when I said just, you know, being on the ground and grassroots and out there and telling folks about it, because not everyone, you know, is in this and not everyone has access to it or the knowledge of it. And they're managing multiple challenges in life right now. So any help with that, I think is very necessary.
That is exactly true. I know that when we tried to help families up at Africana, we just encountered so many who were unable to connect with anybody at ACS. Like I mentioned, they had a pending application for cash assistance, and that meant that they could not apply for a childcare voucher. So they were just sort of waiting for the outcome of that application. So I know that we are running close on time. So if we missed your question, I apologize. There's a lot going on my screen right now, but we will be sharing the resources that everybody has shared in the chat, along with contact information for our speakers. Thank you so much for our wonderful panelists for sharing such in-depth insights today. I think this was a very fruitful discussion. Hopefully moving us towards a more positive solution to more access and increased access for our immigrant families. We hope those of you who are on today were able to bring back some best practices, learned some information that you can bring back to your communities to support your immigrant families in your communities. And we hope that the new mayor is listening and receptive to these great ideas on improving these policies to really helping our immigrant families overcome the many barriers that they face and that we discussed today. So I just want to do a quick thank you to the New School and the Levin Endowment for providing us this forum. Thank you to Naidi Rashka and the rest of the Inside Schools team for helping to plan this event. We will be sending out an email sometime next week that has the recording as well as links and resources to share with you all. I hope this was a fruitful discussion for everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.